Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox and I'd like to welcome you to episode 146 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today I have back my colleague David Simon. David is a partner at the law firm of Foley & Lardner in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. David specializes in white-collar defense and has a specific specialty in the FCPA. But today I visit with David about a very interesting and new and exciting technological solution that he and Foley & Lardner have led the development of, called the Global Risk Solutions Platform. I visit with David about how the tool is used. The episode comes in at just over 20 minutes. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Hello everybody, this is Tom Fox and welcome to this episode of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today I'm very privileged to have back my good friend and colleague David Simon. He's a partner at Foley & Lardner in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He is also one of the top FCPA and white-collar practitioners in the United States. Worked on some seminal cases. I've been lucky enough to have him as a guest before. And so with that introduction, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be with you.
You've had some pretty exciting news really over the past several months. And so I asked if you might be able to come on and share with us one of the things, or a couple of the things that you've done, one of which is a very interesting technological solution that you and your law firm have developed called Global Risk Solutions. So with that, could you tell us what it is and, kind of go from A to Z? How did you come up with the idea and how are you implementing it?
Absolutely. So thanks, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about it, Tom. I mean, Global Risk Solutions is really kind of it's an offering that we've developed to try to bring FCPA compliance to a group of companies that I think are a little bit behind the curve in that space. So smaller, medium-sized companies, middle market type companies that have international operations, that have FCPA exposure, but are kind of built lean and don't have a big compliance structure in-house and don't really want to build the big compliance structure in-house, but want to get compliant and want to avoid bribery problems in their international operations. So our concept really was to try to allow those companies to outsource as much of that work as they could to Foley. I think you and I both know from our experience you can't completely outsource compliance. You gotta own it in-house. But one of the things we were trying to do is move as much of it as we could off of the client's plate onto our plate, to try to leverage the resources of me and my team so we could serve a larger number of clients using technology and really provide an effective, tailored solution for each company, but one that was offered at an affordable price and at a fixed fee. And so that's kind of the basic concept. It's really sort of an outsourced turnkey FCPA compliance solution is the best way to describe it.
David, you brought up a really interesting point, and for those of you who are geographically challenged, Milwaukee is almost dead center in the Midwest. And in the Midwest, certainly my experience in the 4 years I lived there was you had a lot of companies that did business internationally, and but they might be mom and pop, they might be small. Nevertheless, because of a specific expertise they had in a product or service, had a really large international practice with the, international clientele, and with the kind of downturn in what was traditional Midwest industries, they've looked for other markets and they've achieved those. And so the client base you've described, it seems to be kind of Mr. and Mrs. Midwest.
Yeah, you got it exactly right. I mean, these are our core Midwestern clients. They're manufacturers typically. They've been selling overseas through a global distribution network for probably 30 years, sometimes very developed, very sophisticated. They might have built a factory in China, back 20 years ago. They might have a factory in Mexico, but they still operate, mom and pop to some extent, but they tend to be pretty lean in terms of their administrative and management structure. So the idea of building up a full compliance structure in-house really just doesn't fit their culture, doesn't really make sense for them for this sort of the way they operate. And so those are exactly the companies that we're targeting. And it's interesting. I find counseling these clients, which I have done for a number of years. They understand the FCPA, they understand the FCPA risk, but the challenge is really implementation. They're resource constrained, and they're trying to figure out a way to translate, the advice we give on, best practices for an effective compliance program, into reality, to really implement it in their organization. And that's really what we're trying to get at with this offering. We really are trying to provide them with a full solution that they can really implement. I mean, I've had so many experiences with clients where, I've sort of been acting as traditional, outside lawyer, outside counsel, providing, a list of, here's my checklist of all the things you need to do to improve your anti-bribery compliance. And, these clients will look at me and say, I get it. I understand what you're telling me, but I don't have the vaguest idea how to actually make that happen in my organization. And so that's the kind of the problem we were trying to address. And I don't know, you want me to maybe talk a little bit about the technology we're using and how we're trying to achieve it?
I will, but I want to ask you one other kind of psychological factor that I would ask if this plays into this. I'm from Texas, energy down here, perceived to be, and in many ways, cowboys. Big risk takers. My perception of people in the Midwest was they may be mom and pop, they may be international, but they're not big risk takers. And so to have a solution that's cost effective for them would also seem to be something that would be maybe not uniquely Midwestern, but certainly play into the psychology of what I observed of a lot of those folks. Is that a fair observation or really not?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think we have our share of risk takers, maybe a little short on the cowboy side here in the Midwest. But yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think there is there is definitely a culture of a desire to comply with the law, and a culture of let's put it this way: we're value-oriented people. Some might say cheap, but I think that the idea
some might
of
say
a solution that that makes sense, at a price point that makes sense is pretty important with this target market.
Okay, well now, if we could go into really, I've had you've given me the opportunity to see the solution or the tool, but if you could go into some of the technological components to the extent you can, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, in terms of the offering itself, what we tried to do is design it around the what the government's expectations are. So we started with the DOJ and SEC's hallmarks of an effective compliance program. We tried to build it around that guidance. One of the things I think is kind of cool and kind of innovative about our solution is we built it on a technology platform. So if a client signs up, they get a link to a website securely hosted on the cloud, where they'll go in with their credentials and have their whole FCPA compliance program right there, all in one place, which is great because we have documentation of all the efforts. We have it's an auditable trail that sort of shows exactly what they did and when they did it and who they did it for. And it's it's kind of convenient because you can, if you need to prepare reports for your board or prepare reports for investors or some other constituency, or if God forbid you're before the regulators having to justify your compliance program when something goes wrong, it's all collected and documented in one place, which we think is a real kind of value add. So what we have on the site is we have a risk assessment, which I can talk about in a second, a risk assessment module. We've got policies and procedures that are posted there and updated and kind of version controlled on the site. We've got access to training, specific training modules, both for more senior managers and also for rank and file employees, as well as an ability to document on the site who was trained on what and when. We have kind of our model forms and templates for things like contract language or due diligence questions that we offer to our clients through this. And then we're also including legal advice as part of the offering. So the idea is if you hired an in-house counsel to do this, and had somebody inside do the work, we're prepared as Foley to answer the kinds of questions that person would typically get. So we call it curbside counseling, but it's the kind of routine counseling, kinds of routine questions you get in your ordinary business, like, I'm hosting a dinner and I'm anticipating some government officials are going to attend. Can I pick up the tab? And that's the other area. The two areas where we think the technology is really particularly innovative. One is in the risk assessment, and the other's to support the curbside counseling aspect of the offering.
David, how have you been talking to clients about this solution?
So, it's been, we just launched at the beginning of February. We are right now working through a lot of our existing Foley clients and talking to them about it. It's interesting. It's a mixed bag. I think a lot of our clients already know that they're at risk. They already, understand the need. And so we don't have too much work to do in terms of, establishing that need. It's just persuading them this is the right solution for them. It helped us. I mean, the Smith & Wesson resolution is one of my personal favorites when Kara Brockmeyer made the statement that this was a wake-up call for small and medium-sized companies that are doing business in high-risk markets. That's something it won't surprise you. We've been emphasizing in our marketing material. I think it's true. I mean, I think we've actually spent some time collecting information on some of the enforcement actions that were brought against what I think we would consider to be middle market companies. The Schnitzer Steel enforcement actions, an example. Faro Communications is an example. I mean, there are a number of cases. A lot of times, we focus on the top 10, big global multinational resolutions, but there are a number of cases already brought against this kind of middle market segment, in particular industrial manufacturing type companies that we've been highlighting to show, this is something real for you and something you need to focus on. But a lot of them are already aware of the risk, and it's really just a matter of establishing that this is the right solution for them.
And then, David, the other thing, I guess two other things really intrigue me about this offering. One is it's really unusual for a law firm to roll out a technological solution which might actually take away from some of your legal work, but to present it to clients as obviously something that would benefit clients, but I think that benefits the law firm as well. Is that off the mark?
No, I think you're totally right. I mean, and I give a lot of credit to our firm management for supporting me in this venture, because it is a little off the beaten path in terms of the law firm approach. I think it allows us to reach a clientele that is hard for us to reach otherwise. I mean, I think for our firm and our normal kind of billing rates, a lot of the clients that we're talking to about this solution would, we would normally not be on their short list because they would view Foley as too expensive, frankly, for
right.
what they do. So that's a great opportunity for us to go in and help them. I think legitimately help them, and also introduce ourselves to a different group of companies that might not otherwise be, thinking we're the right firm for that. So that's been great, and I think the firm has benefited from being able to show itself as innovative and willing to take a different approach to really solve a real problem for clients. And so, yeah, I think it's been good for us. I think we've appreciated, the opportunity to talk to you and your listeners about this, has been great. And that's all been positive for Foley.
Well, I'm certainly trying to evangelize as much as I can about doing compliance, and this seems to me to be a really unique innovation, if I can't emphasize that too strongly, from the legal world on how do you actually do compliance, a cost-effective way with a great law firm attached.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope people see it that way.
Well, good. David, we've got a few minutes left, and I'd like to turn to another topic of something that you've done recently that I found very interesting. It may not be as cutting edge, innovative software, but it was certainly very innovative. And your firm, and you paired up with an Indian law firm, and I couldn't tell if you put on events in India, but you certainly issued a joint white paper which taught me and others about some of the challenges of doing business in India. You went to India. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, we did. We actually had a great opportunity to work with really an outstanding law firm based in Mumbai called MZM Legal, and it's a real interesting an interesting firm. Very much a sort of a boutique, what we consider a boutique white collar firm. They do litigation and enforcement work and compliance work all around the country. And so we've worked with them. I've worked with them on a number of investigations over the course of the last few years. And we had an opportunity to work with them to work on this guide for really designed for U.S. companies doing business who are looking to do business in India. And what we wanted to do, the way we approached it was not a sort of parade of horribles like all the ways you can get in trouble. And there are lots of them in doing business in India, but more focused on, proactively, here's some things you can do to do business in India consistent with both the FCPA and the local Indian law. So we wrote that guide together with them, and they had some real, what I thought were great insights into compliance under, doing business compliant with Indian law, and some real practical tips about things companies could do to really sort of avoid some of the corruption traps that present themselves in India. So that was kind of our first step. And then, as you mentioned, I did go to India in November, and we had a presentation at the U.S. Consul commercial service. And we invited a lot of U.S. companies that had India operations to come, and we jointly presented on some of these same issues and talked about how to do business in India in a way that really minimizes your risk. And it was a great event. We had probably 100 people there, and we're able to meet a lot of good folks. There's a real strong, I think, interest in figuring this out. I think the opportunities in India are for U.S. companies are really starting to open up and multiply. And I think under the new government, that's going to continue to accelerate. So to help them figure out a way to do it without creating a big FCPA or India law problem is a great opportunity, and we were excited to do it.
I've done a little work with third-party agents and other representatives in India, and one thing I've observed is they recognize that if they can become trained, if they can become FCPA certified, if they can garner knowledge and show a credential of some FCPA experience, whatever that might be, that gives them a market differentiation when a U.S. company comes. And the companies I've dealt with immediately saw that. And so my question to you is, did you see Indian companies wanting to have greater knowledge about the FCPA for their own purposes to market themselves to U.S. companies?
Yeah, completely. I think that's a great insight, Tom. I mean, I think there is a real desire by Indian companies, sort of forward-looking Indian companies, to make themselves attractive to U.S. and Western European, particularly multinationals that are expanding there. I think that's right, and I think they're actually willing to take real steps to show that they're willing to comply with the law, and that they're sensitive to FCPA issues and other UK Bribery Act issues and other corruption regime kinds of issues. They were very interested, and I think it's a great thing for U.S. companies to keep in mind, because I think sometimes there's a reluctance to ask, but I think in India, if you're looking at a business partner and you want deep due diligence, and you want them to participate in training, and you want them to really demonstrate a commitment to complying with your policies and your standards, you're going to find a real openness to that and a willingness to do that. I think you're completely on target with that observation.
Well, and then the last question I want to raise with you is, did you go to Madison?
I did.
So,
I've been excitedly following my Badgers.
so we got a big Go Bucky on that side of the Skype call.
Absolutely, I am very excited, and I am optimistic. If anybody can beat Kentucky, it's the Badgers.
I have to agree with you. Also, I'm an MSU grad, so I have to have some loyalty to the Spartans. But frankly, I agree with your analysis and probably shouldn't announce this publicly, but I actually did pick the Badgers to win it all in my tournament pool. So
good. Well, let's hope for an all Big Ten championship.
Let's hope for that. Well, David, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to visit with me. It's been great as always. I know you got a spring break coming up, so you're probably looking forward to some warm weather. And I look forward to visiting with you again.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Oh, before we go, I forgot to ask if anyone has any questions, where could they contact you or how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, feel free to either email me at dsimon@foley.com or give me a call, 414-297-5519.
Okay, thanks a lot.